just a second. As we go through today, feel free to ask questions. You can send those in using the Q&A question and answer box there in the Zoom interface. Just a quick test here. If you hear my voice and you see the ugly orange PowerPoint slide, go ahead and raise your hand. All right. At least some of you can hear me. So it seems to be working okay on my end. We'll go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about what's new in Nebula 10.1. So Nebula 10.1 officially rolled out at the end of September. Due to a scheduling snafu, we didn't have this webinar last month, so we're having it now to go through this. So this update, even though it's going from 9.2 to 10.1, is actually probably one of the more minor updates that we've had recently with Nebula. It's mostly quality of life improvement. So there's no new major features to go through or spend a lot of time on, but I'll go through and I'll highlight some of the nicer changes here that have been made for you guys. The next major Nebula release is currently scheduled for the end of Q1. So it's going to be a little while before we get our next Nebula interface. All of our resources right now are focused on getting the USG Flex models ported over so that you can work with Nebula. And don't quote me on this, but I believe also the ATPs as well. So that'll be our next major update is when the USG Flex is ready. So right now we're targeting end of Q1 next year. So we'll start by talking about changes in Nebula Control Center. So Nebula Control Center is the web interface you use to manage Nebula. So we've now made it easy for you to transfer ownership of an organization to somebody else. In the past, this is something where you've had to reach out to our tech support team, you've had to open a ticket, provide some details. So now you can do it all yourself. So it works really simple. If you are the owner of an organization, add the new owner as an admin to the same organization if they aren't already, and then you can go into the GUI here and transfer the ownership over. So people will do this most commonly, has to do with techs. Your tech has set up a new site for a new customer and you want to transfer it over to your master owner account that you use to keep track of all your customers. So that way you don't run into issues with, say, your tech leaving and suddenly losing access to your sites. And also in situations where maybe you're transferring as an MSP, transferring ownership over to a different MSP going forward. We've also given you the ability now to delegate an owner. So basically you can delegate to one of your admins, basically the full functionality that an owner has, but without the ability to delete an org or to assign another person to be owner. But otherwise, everything else will be the same. So again, this is something you can use to give to one of your head techs to make them essentially the owner in all but name. We've also changed now how the trial works. So we rolled out early last year a free trial of Nebula Pro that automatically gets applied when someone sets up and creates a new organization. You now have the ability to bypass that Nebula Pro trial period and just skip it entirely if you so choose. You'll also see here we've made some changes to the email. So we've made sure that the trial or the organization who's experiencing the trial, their name is included in that email when we let you know that the trial is about to expire. And we've included some links in there to go ahead and buy Nebula Pro Pack license if you'd like to continue offering Pro Pack after the trial. We've changed the way the cloud authorization. So basically, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, we have the ability to store users in the cloud for doing 802.1x authentication, hotspot authentication, user MAC filtering, stuff like that. So before you had to go in and do it, I believe, through the org interface. So now you can go through the site-specific interface to be able to remove people. So if you have ProPack, and you know, so I'm going to go through the slides. If you see this up in the corner, that's telling you this is a ProPack feature. So if you're using ProPack, we have this automatic site topology view, which automatically maps out your different connected network devices. So we've upgraded that. So if you're using wireless mesh to create your network, it will now be designated there, make it easy for you to tell what's going on, that it's not hardwired, but connected via mesh. And we've also added functionality when you're in the site topology view that you can now reboot devices via PoE power cycling right there without having to go into the switch interface. So for those of you that have missed it, a lot of features can be found by clicking on your avatar in the interface. So it's been moved over to the far right-hand side of the Nebula GUI. And when you click on it now, you get this new menu here. So you've got your profile, language, things like that. But a cool one here is My Devices. So My Devices now makes it easy for you to find all of your devices. So you can see here that if you own an organization, it'll list all the devices under those organizations that you own, and you can search that. So it makes it really easy now to find MAC addresses or serial numbers or devices by searching for those. So that's something people have been asking for a long time. So that has now been added. We'll go ahead and move on here to access points. So we've now given you the ability, if you are using Smart Mesh or if you are not using Smart Mesh, we now give you the ability to turn it on and off on a per AP basis. So if you've got it off for your site, but you've got a couple APs you do want to mesh, you can just turn it on for just those APs instead of having to turn it on for all APs or vice versa. We've also changed here the view you see in Nebula to actually show you when you're looking at the view here of each of your devices, which radio mode each radio is currently operating on. And we've upgraded the configuration templates. So before, configuration templates were pretty much limited to switch only settings. So now we've expanded that to access points. So templates are configuration templates that allow you to push out changes across multiple sites. So you configure it once and then push it out across multiple sites instead of having to go into each site to make those changes. And we've added a new method of cloud authentication. So this is for those of you that are doing hotspots, specifically commercial hotspots. So we've now got the ability that you can go in and create a voucher for people to use to get access to the Wi-Fi. So again, this is primarily being used by those operating paid hotspots, um, hotels, but it could also be used for controlling access for guests visiting a corporate office or something like that. So you can go ahead and create a voucher. Those can be printed off. So if you go into authentication here, when you choose sign-in method, we've got the standard, click to continue, sign on with various different methods. So now we've also got voucher as an option. So you can set up when you're creating these vouchers, how much time is on there, when they expire, what text is on there, and then you simply print them out. And see, we've got a little print interface here, print them out and cut them up. So your front desk reception can generate these, print them out, cut them up, and then hand them out to users as they come in to visit. This is just showing here the interface when they log in. You've now got this view here to enter their voucher code. So some people might point out that this seems very similar to another feature we added this summer, which is dynamic pre-shared keys. So with dynamic pre-shared keys, you give each user their own custom password. They all connect to the same SSID, but based on the password they use, it will assign a different VLAN for them. So similar type functionality, we do have people using this as a way to do hotspot access. So the voucher is another alternative here for you. Very similar. So you'll notice if you're using the dynamic pre-shared key, you get authentication plus encryption. If you're using a voucher, it's just authentication that you're handling here. Again, with dynamic pre-shared key, you get VLAN support. You don't get that with vouchers. But it's a lot much more user-friendly, especially if you're doing it for public access or one-time guest to a corporate network type of things. Whereas DPPSK is really good for using for employees to be able to control which employees have access to which VLANs. So on the switch side of things, we've upgraded the ability to filter your switches. So you can now go in and you can add a port range, as well as select which individual switches you want to include when you're doing your filtering to see your port status. And then on the gateway side of things, we are in the process of changing over who's providing our content filtering. So the new provider of this is going to be McAfee going forward. So we were using Siren in the past. It's going to switch over to McAfee. So this is for those of you using content filtering with our NSG gateways. So the NSG gateways, if you haven't upgraded the firmware yet, the firmware will automatically upgrade on November 23rd. And once the firmware is updated, it will automatically switch over to using McAfee. There's no other configuration required. It's just going to be automatic for you. And while it's been only about 10 minutes here, guys, that is the end of today's presentation. I know it's a really short one for you. Like I said, not a lot of major significant features that have changed, nothing that we really need to go through you and walk you through how to do them. So with that, if you have any questions here, go ahead and send them in via Q&A and I will answer them. While I'm waiting for some questions to come in, just want to draw your attention to the fact that we do have a user forum, forum.zyxel.com, that you can log in, talk to your other Zyxel users. And also, unlike other user forums, these forums are monitored by our tech support and our product management team and our HQ. So if you have issues and things you want to bring up, you can feel comfortable knowing they will be seen by people who have the ability to make some changes. And you may even see them waiting in and answering questions that you have. And of course, my email is ShawnR, SHAWNR @zyxel.com. So feel free to reach out to me offline with feedback, questions, suggestions for webinar topics, things like that. So going forward here, Chris has a question. Chris was asking, any plans to incorporate management of the GS2210 series into the Nebula platform? So no, unfortunately, the GS2210s cannot be ported over to Nebula. The new GS2220s, which replace the 2210s, those do support Nebula. So if going forward you need a Nebula switch, get the 2220s. The 2220s are available now. We are still selling the 2210s, at least most models, for the next few months. So those are still available for you. But if you want Nebula management of the switches, you do need to switch to the GS2220s. What is the status on the release of the NWA 1123 AC V3? So we're still waiting for confirmation of when we're going to get delivery of the NWA 1123 AC V3s. Right now, it's looking at probably mid-December. But again, we don't have confirmation of exactly when those are going to ship to us. So for those that are familiar with it, the NWA 1123 AC V2 is being phased out. And will be replaced with a V3. Should be the same pricing, same basic feature set. The primary difference is the housing looks a little bit different, and they're switching from 11AC to 11AC Wave 2 on the chipset. So Seth also is asking about USG Flex. So USG Flex should be supported in the next major release, which right now we're targeting the end of Q1 next year. That should give us USG Flex and I believe also ATP support. For sure, USG Flex. So that's all I've got for questions, guys. If there's anything else, just reach out to me via email. Again, it's ShawnR@zyxel.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions offline. You can always reach out to your salesperson. Thanks for joining us today, guys.